Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a Shadow Primeape team that just climbed all the way up to number 3 in the world on the GO Battle League leaderboards. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Danky-chan, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, Danky-chan is running a team with Shadow Steelix, Shadow Primeape, and Galarian Moltres. So 2 Shadows, Moltres as the sweeper. It's a pretty fun team, and as you can see from getting 3rd in the world, this team gets results as well. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at the team in action in the Open Great League. Hopping to the first match, picking up a favorable lead, Shadow Steelix into Dragonite. Opponent safe switches into Dusclops, and that will swiftly be answered with Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres does have a pretty nice matchup here. A high-ranked Galarian Moltres is able to tank 2 Ice Punches fairly comfortably. It appears this Moltres may not have particularly optimized stats, as that Ice Punch did do quite a bit more damage than it normally does. Moltres is going to no-shield, it can survive both moves, and it should even survive 1 more Hex to make it to a second Fly. Fly number 1 is going to be shielded, the second Fly will be reached, the opponent realizes it, so they're forced to fire off a Shadow Punch to pick up the knockout. Switch advantage has been lost, but the Shadow Primeape in the back does have access to Ice Punch. Ice Punch obviously will easily pick up the knockout onto that Dragonite. So Dusclops will fire off a last second Shadow Punch and get farmed down. Opponent is going to send in their final Pokemon, it's Gastrodon, and this is not ideal whatsoever. Steelix in a bad matchup, going to full send the Earthquake, big damage, in comes Primeape. Primeape now going to be answered with the Dragonite, and does Dragonite call this? It's a 50-50. Ice Punch, the full send into the Dragonite, it connects, down goes Dragonite. Opponent realizes there's no longer a way to win the game, and they will resign the match. Moving into game number 2, Shadow Steelix met with the Dene a dominant lead win. Opponent safe switches into Araquanid. Game 1 was the Primeape show landing that Ice Punch, but game 2, Steelix is completely tearing the opponent's team to smithereens. The uncomfortable thing about this mid-game though is Steelix absolutely cannot be allowed to get low, because Steelix is needed to wall off the Dene energy later in the game. The shield comes up, it proves to be a very wise decision as it is the Water Pulse, and now in comes Primeape. Primeape has 2 jobs here, not only knocking out the Araquanid, but also luring back out that Dedenne, because Dedenne would completely wall off the Galarian Moltres. Back in comes Dedenne, Shadow Primeape going to unleash a +1 Rage Fist. This will inflict serious damage if it lands, which it does. Now this is a bit of a tough call. Do you invest the final shield in the Primeape and commit? It looks like the answer is yes, making the call that the opponent is weak in the back to Primeape. Now all shields are down for Danky-chan. Danky-chan's Rage Fist is going to be shielded, so Primeape is going to get KO'd, but now the opponent has basically lost their entire Dedenne. They need whatever's in back to sweep up a shield, and in the back they have Furret, and that is not going to be sweeping anything. Furret going to be debuffed with the Psychic Fangs, and in comes Galarian Moltres, and the opponent will immediately resign the match as they recognize there is just no way to win that game. We move to the next match here. Shadow Steelix is going to be staring down a Dusclops. This is a pretty fine matchup for the Steelix. Obviously, you would much prefer to have this aligned onto the Galarian Moltres, but in the grand scheme of things, this is still not bad alignment by any means. The opponent overfarms a ton. Are they on Poltergeist? They did build up to it. No, they are not. No Poltergeist to be seen. And instead, Steelix is going to tank the Shadow Punch and fire off the Earthquake. Earthquake is going to land. That gets the opponent very low. The opponent now going to save switch into Shadow Primeape. Shadow Primeape will fire off the Rage Fist right away, boosting up their attack. Steelix puts up a shield and will go for the Psychic Fangs. So now the opponent is going to be +1 attack, but -1 defense. Now that they're debuffed, in comes Primeape, and Primeape is going to look for the 1 shield farm down. Hopefully the Karate Chops will be enough, needing 5 Karate Chops to KO here. It's going to be close, but Shadow Primeape is able to get the farm down. Primeape exits with a ton of energy, and that is needed because the Dusclops does have a Shadow Punch loaded. This is a charge attack priority tie. The opponent is going to commit the shield because they just want to remove Primeape's loaded Rage Fist from the field of play. It's going to be all up to Galarian Moltres to try and win a 1v1 in the endgame, and the fact that it's Diggersby, as long as they don't have Hyper Beam, which by throwing on 5, they do not, this game is going to be a win. This is another situation where Galarian Moltres having access to Fly is just incredibly helpful, as Moltres no longer has to fire off Ancient Powers because it doesn't want to debuff itself just yet. Instead, it can just go straight for the Fly. Fly, very nice, consistent neutral damage in this matchup. Diggersby can go for another Fire Punch, but their switch clock is just never going to be up in time. Only 3 charge attacks have been thrown. Moltres is safe to undertap the Fly. Fly is going to KO. In comes the Dusclops. Dusclops able to hang on with fractional HP, making one final move. It's the Ice Punch, but they just do not have the energy needed to make the game-winning move. Steelix gets the farm down. I believe that is now 4-0 in this set, looking for the perfect 5-0 set, but that's not the lead you're hoping to see. Shadow Steelix into Diggersby. The safe switch to the Shadow Primeape. Diggersby gonna stay in and go for a Fire Punch, able to outpace due to the one-turn switch. Primeape, investing in its health, will give up a shield. Opponent now gonna send out Shadow Annihilate. Back-to-back Rage Fists have been reached, and this will inflict massive damage. I genuinely don't know if Annihilate can hang on here. It looks like it barely can hang on. Not by much, but Annihilate should be able to withstand that damage, shield the second, and get the farm down. The game freezes. Game, what is going on? It looks like the fast moves did go through. I know they're working on trying to improve the game state, but man, I really need to see those results as soon as possible because it's so frustrating when games lag out like that. Thankfully, the lag didn't occur permanently. The game, it looks like all the fast moves did go through, so now we're back in it. In comes Moltres, answered with a Jump Fluff in the back. And I think, unfortunately, this is just going to be too much for Moltres to try and do in the endgame. Moltres is going to be no shielding. Jump Fluff is going to be firing off acrobatics, and that move landing does mean that this game is over. Gonna full send the Brave Bird here. Fly would not be enough to knock out. The opponent knows it, so they are going to no shield. In comes the Diggersby, and Diggersby will always just shield the Brave Bird and get a farm down. And Diggersby will just have too much health for Steelix to do anything. So Diggersby will commit the shield. In comes that Shadow Steelix, and unfortunately, there's just no way to win. So Steelix is gonna no shield, Scorching Sands is gonna land, and Diggersby will actually get a full quick attack down, so no 5-0 set, but will get the 4-1. Moving into set number 2, and the leads are not getting easier. Leading into a Stun Fist, the safe switch Primeape unanswered, the opponent just gonna stay in and fire off Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb is gonna be shielded, so far playing out pretty similarly to the last game, but this game is gonna take a dramatic turn as in comes Lapras. Lapras being switched in here, the opponent's making the call that this is an Ice Punch Primeape, so they are going to be no shielding, saying, I do not believe you have close combat, and that is actually a pretty nice read from the opponent. However, Primeape is able to put so much pressure on the Lapras, and a miscount from the opponent means that Primeape will actually generate a shield advantage out of this mid-game. Primeape, very happy to get this shield advantage because now it can just let itself go and go for farm on either the Moltres or the Shadow Steelix. Honestly, I think the play is it has to be the Shadow Steelix because there's still that Unova Stunfisk. Steelix could honestly consider shielding here because a Sparkling Aria will do more damage than a Mud Bomb. And if the opponent brings back in the Stunfisk, which they do, this sets up Earthquake to be absolutely devastating. Steelix gonna farm past the Earthquake, opponent just gonna fire off the Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb will inflict some pretty solid damage. Steelix goes for the Earthquake, and thankfully we do not see a catch. This Earthquake will hit for big damage, KOing Stunfisk. In the back is Drifblim. In comes Galarian Moltres. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Moving into the next game, Shadow Steelix versus Bombardier, the opponent breaking out the spice, but a great lead for Steelix means the opponent is going to retreat into Diggersby, which will be met with the Shadow Primeape. Primeape no shields a Fire Punch, that is going to cause massive damage. Primeape able to get to the back-to-back Ice Punches. Shadow Ice Punch does not knock out here, but it does deal a ton of damage. The opponent shields. They actually played to a CMP tie that they do not win. Is the opponent really willing to double shield here? No, they are not. Can Primeape hang on? If Primeape shields, can it get the Karate Chop down before the quick attacks are going to force a simultaneous knockout? It's going to be close. Primeape hangs on with very low health remaining, and a Rage Fist. Obviously, Rage Fist not going to do a ton into Bombardier. In the back, a Shadow Kanto Marowak, and that's going to be answered with the Galarian Moltres. Moltres knows that it can't be Mud Slap down even after a Rock Slide lands, so that's always going to be a no shield, and now Moltres can just get it ever closer to fly range with these sucker punches. Going for fly number 1, the opponent is going to commit the shield, but again, in a 1 shield endgame scenario, the 4 charge moves needed to burn the switch timer are just not available for the opponent, so Moltres has a very safe undertap, and we see from the bottom right the opponent top left it immediately as they realized there was just no way for them to ever win this game. Moving into the next match, Shadow Steelix is going to be staring down a Gastrodon, and this is incredibly bad. The safe switch into Shadow Primeape unanswered from the opponent. Primeape is going to bluff a close combat. Granted, a close combat this early in the switch clock is unlikely, so the opponent is likely to no-shield, which they will, and now out comes Annihilate. Annihilate is going to have to respect this. This is a +1 Rage Fist. It will be enough to just cleanly knock out, but a healthy Annihilate and a healthy Gastrodon mean a very sad Steelix. In comes the Galarian Moltres, but at this point, the game is probably already over. Moltres is going to be no-shielding. It takes massive damage from that Ice Punch, able to make a last-second fly, but I don't really see a way Steelix is ever getting through that Gastrodon. The opponent is going to end up shielding the Annihilate. The double shield Annihilate tactics is very tough for this team to deal with. And my goodness, Steelix is just getting absolutely melted. Steelix finally able to get the farm down, but unfortunately Steelix, oh, it will actually see the third. I was going to say it's not going to see the third, but in comes a Bastiodon. This is a Shadow Earthquake. This is double super effective damage onto the Bastiodon. It connects, but now in comes Gastrodon. Gastrodon is going to be firing off a Body Slam. Body Slam obviously going to be shielded. Steelix needs to get to the Earthquake here, and Steelix surprisingly made that closer than expected, but unfortunately not enough to get the win. Hopping into the next match, Shadow Steelix is going to be met with an Azumarill. This is a pretty solid lead for the Shadow Steelix. As the Shadow Steelix, you're probably very happy just to try and play out the Zero Shield here. Ice Beam from Azumarill never going to be particularly threatening. The opponent throwing on Alignment, which is a massive surprise, as you really don't want to give free turns to Steelix. Steelix not going to bait, going straight for the Earthquake, just looking to punish a no-shield. Earthquake is going to land, and Azumarill is now deep into the red. Opponent safe switches into Galarian Corsola. That's going to be met with Galarian Moltres, and the opponent clearly must be double weak to Moltres in the back, as they immediately resign the match. We've got a battle of titans in the next match, Danky-chan versus Boom. And it's a tough lead. Shadow Steelix into Shadow Kanto Ninetales. The safe switch into Shadow Primeape unanswered by Boom. Ninetales will get outpaced here. Rage Fist is going to be no-shielded. Ninetales continues to farm up, and Ninetales will be able to grab a shield with a Weather Ball. Ninetales is going to have to switch out of here eventually, and there's the switch out. In comes Azumarill, and this is actually a very good bait out for Danky-chan. Danky-chan really wants to try and bait out the potential Fairy type to free up the Galarian Moltres to potentially try and sweep later on in the match. So for now, the Primeape is going to keep spamming out Rage Fist after Rage Fist, switch timer is up, and in comes Steelix. Steelix is already down 1 shield. It's never going to be giving up the second shield on an Ice Beam. Ice Beam never going to hit very hard neutrally, and Steelix will get a full farm down. The Ninetales will have to respect the Psychic Fangs. It's low enough that it will get cleanly knocked out otherwise. So the Psychic Fangs gets no-shielded, they get KO'd, and in the back, Boom's going to try and sweep with Shadow Primeape. Primeape going to play 2 charge attack priority. Steelix more than happy to concede the final shield in exchange for a permanent defense drop that Boom will not be able to reset for the remainder of the game. And now Steelix's Thunder Fangs are going to add up more and more and more. This Primeape has taken so much damage. In comes Galarian Moltres. What nuke move does this Primeape have, and can Galarian Moltres hang on? It's the Ice Punch. Moltres survives. Moltres switches into the Primeape, sniping down with a Karate Chop. And that was a very well played endgame. Anytime you see a 2-shield Shadow Primeape and you're at a shield disadvantage, things are always going to look extremely dire, but it was great win con identification to recognize that the shield had to be used on the Steelix to apply the debuff and just get all those Thunder Fangs applied, because getting all that damage onto the -1 Primeape was the difference between winning and losing that game. And here we have Danky-chan claiming the set, getting to 2935 ELO, which at the time of recording was number 3 in the entire world. All in all, this team should be a pretty strong climbing team for those who are interested. Obviously, running 2 Shadows, the team does end up feeling a little bit on the glassier side, even though most people would not refer to Steelix as glassy. But if you're able to manage your energy well with Shadow Primeape and kind of understand when do I want to potentially play for debuffs on Steelix versus when am I trying to just play for farming something down with Primeape, this team looks to be a very strong one. Obviously, it ended up at number 3 in the world, so it was definitely doing quite well in the meta. I do think the choice of Galarian Moltres is an inspired one. Obviously, the dark flyer of choice for most people currently is Air Slash Mandibuzz, as Air Slash just hits unresisted into so many meta Pokemon, where obviously Sucker Punch is resisted by more Pokemon. But what I do really like about the choice of Galarian Moltres is it has really nice closing power, and on a team where Shadow Primeape is often getting shields down for opponents because Shadow Primeape is just an absolute terror to battle against, having a Pokemon that can nuke endgame with Brave Bird, I think is a really nice choice compared to something like the Mandibuzz, whereas Mandibuzz obviously can tank hit after hit after hit, but Mandibuzz is never really doing any kind of meaningful damage. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.